Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing how to, as well as lessons learned in replacing your electric water heater. I did a little checking online and found out you normally would pay around $900 to $2,500 for a water heater replacement. By doing the job yourself, you can easily save between $400 to $2,000. So on the save meter for DIY water heater replacement, I give it a 9. That's on a scale of a 1 to 10. Before we get started, let's review all the tools I'll be using. I've also included Amazon affiliate links in the bottom to make it easier to find these tools. First thing I'll be using is a pipe wrench, or a crescent wrench, pliers, Teflon tape is a must, Phillips screwdriver, a standard screwdriver. So there's a hacksaw, copper pipe cutter. There is, now what I recommend here is the SharkBite. Now they have these, because they have these at Home Depot. These are push to fit fittings. The good thing about these is they're very simple to use, and they work for all different types of CPVC, PEX, and it just makes it easy because you got copper over here, you have CPVC or PEX over here. It's an easy transition. You just push it in, it's done. Easy connection. So highly recommended for the SharkBite fittings on these. The other thing is a deburring tool, and this also a SharkBite brand, but this works for copper, PEX, CPVC, everything. So it's a one-stop shop for when it comes to the deburring. Well, now that we got our tools together, I guess we better get started.
Step number 1, turn off utilities.
First thing we're going to do is turn off the circuit breaker going to the water heater. Usually you'll see it on a panel clearly labeled as a water heater. So at the top of the water heater, you'll see the valve right there, and that needs to be shut off. Unfortunately, on mine, that valve does not shut the entire water off. I had to go outside to the main valve and shut that off to the entire house.
Bonus tip. Because these valves can be 10, 20, or more years old, the rubber seals within the valves disintegrate and will leak, as in the case of myself when trying to shut off the water. Step number 2, drain the tank.
So this whole project got started because the water heater started leaking. So the first thing, although I didn't show it, the first thing you do is this particular valve at the bottom of the water heater is obviously for draining. So now because I've already drained the water heater, I'm actually going to turn this off. This valve is going to be turned off. So now the water is turned off, and I have to remove my garden hose from the fitting. Now, as you can see at the top of the tank, there's the pressure relief valve. It's that aluminum piece sticking straight up. That will help drain the tank.
Step number 3, disconnect the electrical wires.
The next thing to do is disconnect the electrical lines. Remove the wire nuts. Make sure the breaker is turned off before you go doing this, though. I also recommend taking a picture of the wires just so it makes it easy to reconnect color to color back when you go to put everything back together later.
Step number 4, disconnect water lines and pressure relief valve line.
Now, although I didn't film it, I just took this Sawzall with a metal cutting blade and cut through the pipes on the top of the water heater, because you can't use those fittings again anyways. So currently we have copper coming out of the wall. I bought CPVC, which is the hot and cold version of PVC. That allows you to use it in hot water conditions, such as a water heater. Now, like I said, everything should be loose now, and the fun part is trying to get this down by myself.
Step number 5. Remove the old water heater.
So I carefully removed the water heater out of its location. As long as you've taken most of the water out of it, it shouldn't be that heavy. In my case, though, the water heater sits on top of a shelf that's above the washer and dryer. So I was alone. So what I did was I slid it off gently onto a garbage can and then gingerly dumped it out the door on the side of my house.
Step number 6. Prepare the new water heater.
So at this step, you may need to install 3/4 inch FIP fittings on the top of the water heater. If you're going to install the fittings, um, we will go over in more detail in step 8. But exactly how you go about reconnecting the water lines will depend on what fittings you'll need to use. If you can use the pre-made flexible connections, the SharkBites, that's really the preferred method. It makes for an easier connection. For me, though, this wasn't an option because I wanted to add a ball valve on the supply side. That way, allow me to cut off the water coming into the water heaters so I don't have to go turn it off for the entire house. But in the video, you will notice that, yes, there is another valve there. And that is because the old valve is very old, and I decided just to leave it because I wanted to get the job done quickly. So let's go ahead and move on to step number 7.
Step number 7. Move water heater in place.
As mentioned before, I have a water heater that's above a shelf, and I definitely recommend in this case to have somebody help you with it so you can get it up there easier. One other thing I'd like to mention is you can add a water heater drain pan. This allows you to, if the water heater leaks, it will drain in the pan. And
Step number 8. Reconnect the water lines.
so when it comes to different connections on your water heater, it's going to be slightly difficult for me to go over every possible scenario. So what I'm going to have to do is just give you an explanation of the different types of material to use to connect. CPVC, braided flexible pre-made connections with SharkBites, copper, you have PEX A and PEX B. PEX A is expansion and PEX B is crimp type. So there ends up being multiple ways to reconnect, but what I decided to use was 3/4 inch CPVC with metal fuse connections, CPVC pipe, and then use a SharkBite connector to connect onto the existing copper plumbing.
Step number 9. Reconnect the electrical wires.
Although I didn't get a shot of the connection of the electrical wires, the existing connection from the old water heater shows you the color black to black, and then white goes to the red. You also see the ground wire back there in green. Pretty simple connection. One other thing I'd like to mention before we move on is the ball valve. They last a lot longer. Definitely the way to go if you have to pick a valve for any of your project, no matter whether it's, in this particular case, it's the SharkBite push fitting. It just made it really simple.
Step number 10. Fill the tank and check for leaks.
So at this stage, I checked for leaks, and I actually did have a leak. But I want to show you something on here. Now, the beauty of the SharkBite is the CPVC can actually be spun and rotated, which allows me to take the fitting back off and add more Teflon tape, and then that sealed up the leak. So that's a great addition to using the SharkBites, was it allowed the fitting to spin inside the SharkBite.
Thank you for watching. Please share and subscribe. See you on the next one.